to see if he was barefoot. Is that still the case? Is he barefoot? Because I know on Facebook somebody posted a picture of these could be his shoes, or is that so he is presumed to be barefoot at this point?
What I can say is that his mom says all of his shoes are accounted for at the house. I'm not going to say that he's barefoot.
All right.
Allegedly!
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative. Here's a brief disclaimer for tonight's show. Let's watch.
That's ignorant! Allegedly, that's ignorant! Ignorant!
Judgment, Alston.
Boy, you read my thoughts. You've got the shinin.
You mean shining?
Shh! You wanna get sued?
Judgment, Alston.
You just use that shin of yours to call me and I'll come a running. But don't be reading my mind between 4 and 5. That's Willie's time.
Hey, yo, boss. I love it when he does that.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative, and it's so good to see all of you guys today. And I saw that we had some anniversaries to start off with, and I saw little Miss Sharon for 4 months. Thank you so much, and for your super sticker, thank you. And we love having you a part of the Dragon Tribe. You're awesome, little Miss Sharon. Thank you so much. And then also I see Holly S says 2 months but longer, and send a super sticker to you. Thank you, Holly S. And again, you guys are awesome. I love you guys. I see Sabrina Smith. Good to see you. Rogue is coming in hot at lucky number 7. Kelly Holcomb, thank you for being number 8. And I saw Meeeeow was number 12. I said that tonight's title is Meeeeow, right? Because I don't think that Mr. Proudfoot's PI is playing with a full deck, but I'll show you why. We also have Deanna D. Good to see you. Wait, what? GA64 and Mallycat. I saw SI Officer and Kai Kai, and I also saw Adam Forever 21. It's so nice to see you guys tonight, and thank you all so much for being here. Hey, Linda, good to see you. And Carla, sorry if I missed anybody, guys. Very nice to see all of you, and I very much appreciate you being here to talk about Sebastian Rogers. So there was some really horrible news that came out yesterday, and I shared Seth Rogers' post about our friend Dog the Bounty Hunter. So, hey, Kathy, you know, Dog the Bounty Hunter has done a lot in terms of his career, right? But he's also a very genuine, sweet person, in my opinion. Hey, Shadow. And it pains me to have to report this. So his 13-year-old step grandson, right? He was married for a long time to people who watched the show and things, to his wife Beth, and he lost her to cancer. I have a little clip to watch for that, and I turned it into a short. He passed away from an accidental gunshot in Naples, Florida. So that happened July 19th, 2025. So it appears it would have been a Saturday at 8 o'clock at night, around 8 o'clock at night, it was called in. My heart goes out to the family, to the father. I can't imagine. I really don't want to speculate at this point, because it's hard. It is so heartbreaking, you know, and it's just like, so I really am not trying to speculate, but just kind of talk about it, because, you know, this young man deserves to be talked about. And just to say that, you know, Dog the Bounty Hunter has helped in Sebastian's case in a great way, in my opinion. I know that there's a lot of people that do not share that opinion, but that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that he's involved in Sebastian's case, and also in Summer Wells's case. He added her as well. And it's just heartbreaking for a family to ever have to go through that. It doesn't matter what our opinions are at that point, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and play this video just to kind of show you guys.
Life is so fragile and precious. 13-year-old Anthony Zecca, step-grandson to Dog the Bounty Hunter, lost his life in a tragic accident July 19th, 2025. Deputies responded to a call around 8:08 p.m. to Dwayne and Francie Chapman from the Dragon Tribe. Please accept our deepest condolences and prayers.
Authorities are investigating, but they call the tragedy an isolated incident. No arrests have been made.
How have you handled it?
Much prayer and fasting. I will have no fear.
Gregory's mom, Francie Chapman, married Dog in 2021 after they both lost their spouses to cancer.
Francie's husband passed 6 months before Beth, and I knew right away that this was love, and of course I moved fast, right? There couldn't have been ever a better pick that God picked. Never.
My grandson calls him Grandpa Dog already. We went to his school last week and picked him up from school, and that was like the coolest thing ever. So they love him.
My grandson, this is Anthony, and he is here for the summer to visit Dog and I. Say hi to everybody.
Hi. Dog the Bounty Hunter's step-grandson killed by his own father in what appears to be a freak accident. According to reports, 13-year-old Anthony Zecca was shot Saturday by his dad Gregory at an apartment in Naples, Florida.
I'm wondering, what is this?
The couple tells TMZ through a rep, quote, "We are grieving as a family over this incomprehensible tragic accident and would ask for continued prayers."
God is moving fast everywhere.
The family is very strong in their faith. Anthony even sharing this story with his grandma Francie last year.
When it first came, it hit me like, bomb. But when it came again, it hit me like, punch back.
And what do you think that was?
The Holy Spirit.
That is so awesome, and I'm so proud of you, and how it's important for us to have Jesus in our life.
Yeah.
Because life's hard, and we struggle, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, guys, so, you know, just heartbreaking and unexpected. Hey, Lori, good to see Lori, and Lil Redo, nice to see you. Good to see all of you guys, and thank you for all your thoughts and kind words and thoughts and prayers in the chat. You guys are amazing. It's just, you know, something that's so unexpected. Hey, Seclusion Works, good to see you. Thanks, Carla, for being number 27. Thank you guys for hitting the like button. That's so sweet. I really appreciate you guys for that. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's so sad, little Miss Sharon. I didn't hear about it until this morning, I believe, was when I saw a post for it. So I needed, to get a video out, and I did put it on the shorts, the one I just showed. Oh, thank you, Kai Kai. Let's see, I could drop the link for iPhone. I think I saved it in one of my clipboards one day. Give me 1 second. Okay, it appears that I did not save it where I thought I did. But let me go ahead, and when I show the video, I will grab it, because I think I can just go, or maybe I could send it from this phone. But oh yeah, so it's been a couple of days, it seems like. But I was live on Saturday night, so but it's been kind of wild. It's very sad. Just my heart goes out. Tonight, I would like to talk about SF and his theories, and kind of, my thumbnail is kind of quick and just something funny, but my problem with what's been put out is that I really don't understand what they're trying to insinuate. And I feel like they're saying, look at these lights, which police have had this information, but they're not convinced about these 3 a.m. lights. And I think you all kind of know how I feel about the 3 a.m. lights, and I do find them to be relevant. Yes, definite fish sticks. It's funny because Chris from the Mob Crew, he put out 2 really good videos, right? So there's a part 1 and a part 2. I'm not sure if there's a part 3 that he put out. I think he did a live or members only. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but absolutely hilarious, right? Because it's a cat that someone's looking for their cat in the neighborhood, and it appears that it's a teenage boy, kind of built like a teenage boy. That's my best guess, but correct me if I'm wrong. And it's not Sebastian, and it has been confirmed that this is not Sebastian, and by the other camp too, because I wasn't sure when I put it up the other day. I'm like, is this really what we're looking at here? But I'll just show you, because I could yap away here really quick, just to be fair. Here's the quick timestamp version, right? 2/25/24, 22/18. So that's about the time that we're looking at, which is February 25th. Sebastian wasn't reported missing until around 6:38 in the morning by his mother, Katie. But this is some footage, and you're going to be able to see, this is the zoomed in version, and that's the reason I wanted to show you the first one. You can see that they're looking around, searching when the light comes into view. And then here it is again, and you're going to see a person appear from this direction, from the right direction of the screen. I'm not great with north, south, east, and west, just to let you guys know, so I always say your left or right. But then you see again, there's like a pole, it's lit up, and again, the flashlight, you can kind of see it scanning the grass, but not being used as something to be showing light while someone's walking, but more so to search around in the darkness. And here comes the person. And I know these kids run around a lot with shorts, and it's February at night, so it's chilly, but this person appears to be wearing like a short sleeve shirt and shorts. And when they sit down on the curb here, I didn't realize it before looking again, but this person's kind of trying to set the light up in order to look underneath the car on the other side. And again, I like to crop it in and make it so I can see this person because I think it's important. But either way, there was a cat that was out in the neighborhood. I'm not sure if this cat goes out regularly or if they were worried because the cat didn't come back when they thought that, you know, that they would. But they are alleged to have been retrieving their cat. Now, it's just weird that the PI is focusing on everything else other than the flashlight video. Why has he not worked to get the flashlight video out and see it in a more what can I say? I'm not saying that he should enhance it or, you know, spend time, I guess, maybe, but it's weird that he'll try to enhance a video like this or like the one of the person walking their dog, but he wouldn't look at that video as anything at all. You know, he's put out pictures of the trash truck. He's put pictures out of the backyard, but he hasn't put out anything to do with the lights video. And that really makes me wonder why. Because he should be looking at every video and any activity in the area, in my opinion, but he's choosing to focus on this, which we know that this is not Sebastian. We know that he's not alleging that it is Sebastian, but he's alleging that it is one of the neighbors' son who lives in the area. And it's been alleged that, you know, they're just looking for a cat. So whether that's the son or not, I'm not really worried about it because it's just somebody in their own neighborhood searching for their cat. And I do believe that because you can see the cat. Hey, Robbini, good to see you. And like I said, definitely check out Chris from the Mob Crew. He did a fantastic job of putting together, yet again, you know, a very digestible, easy to follow explanation of why Steve Fischer is busted and or got busted. I'm not trying to say he is. Well, he kind of is busted, but he got busted as well because these semantics that he's playing, these little games he's playing in Sebastian's case, it's absolutely sickening when you are working a case like this and I receive information that I do on a daily basis pertaining to this case. It's very heavy. It's very much like carrying a big bag of boulders up a hill. Because just when you think that bag is full, somebody comes along and drops another boulder in it, and then you're carrying it. And it just, it's very difficult. And some of the things that I receive, and I appreciate everything and everybody wanting to send me things, I understand that. It's just so dark and devastating. And I really don't have a better explanation than those words right there. Maybe horrific. Hi, Sasha. Sasha says, how could this happen? I don't know. And I don't know why they're playing games still, because for a while there, you know, Mr. Fishsticks was kind of not making any appearances, and now he is, you know. Uh-oh, SI officer, every 15 minutes I get a black screen advertisement. Uh-oh. I don't know why YouTube does that sometimes. I don't know why. It's like because sometimes it'll just go into the ad or some, and then sometimes it'll like completely kick someone out of a live, because I've had that happen to me too before when I was in chat, and I'm like, oh, I got kicked out. Lil Redo says, Lady Freedom, do you have the video from the neighborhood to show? I only took this video that I have here. Do you mean like the whole view? Like I cropped that one in. I think I do actually have that. Let me see. It was over. Oh, I remember. Okay, so this is why I didn't want to do it to begin with, because the darn timestamp wasn't showing like it was. Let me see. Let me add this in really quick. But yeah, I cropped that in to see who may have been in the area, because I noticed that right off the bat that the person was wearing shorts, and Sebastian was said to have been wearing pants, and so I'm like, okay, trying to compare and make sure that I could show you guys where he wasn't. I didn't appear to that he was wearing pants. But give me a second, and it's loading in. Because this is like the entire view really quick, right, from the neighbor's porch and how the video came about. But I think it cut off some of the timestamp when I resaved it. I don't know why it did that, or if it's just out of frame. But it should have pulled in just like, the quick video I showed just now. I think they're trying to say that the neighbor's son was lying in wait, which is silly. Well, that's what I was thinking too, Lil Red. I think that they're trying to like blame. I mean, because isn't that something that they have done before? And forgive me and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they were saying, like, let's look at the neighbor kids, and somebody had brought that to me as a theory, and I'm like, I don't think that is true. And the reason why I don't think it's true, I'm not saying that a kid couldn't be capable of doing this, right? Because we all know, we've seen a lot of these cases in true crime. A lot of times it's a person that you least expect. And then also children do commit these awful, oops, sorry guys, I kicked my table. These awful crimes. So, I mean, oh, okay, well, this is a good one. This is like the whole video right here of the neighborhood. But I think they've been putting that out there, and blame the neighbor theory, because the blame Sebastian theory didn't work, the blame Seth theory didn't work, and now they're again trying to blame Bobby, or her kids rather, or one of them. Lil Red says, remember in the beginning, Crispy Critter said he was chasing a cat. Well, yeah, I do remember that. I do remember him saying that on a podcast. I don't remember which one it was, or YouTube Live. I don't know which one it was, but yes, I do remember that actually, Lil Redo. Batman ruined Gordon's fish sticks for me. Seclusion works. That's funny. It's ridiculous. They are ridiculous, Kelly. I agree. I see, and I don't like fish sticks at all, and I'm not talking about SF. I'm just talking about the ones that I'm not down with any of that, but that, even so, some people are. Carla says, when SF blurs pictures and videos, he's trying to show anything to the public to make them believe Bobby's kids did something. Yeah, and that is that's outrageous in my opinion. Especially if it is a cat, and we've heard about that before. I do think that is something that they've been trying to do, and it's wrong. I mean, I think when Bobby was telling us that her children were going to help to find Sebastian, I believe that they were very much trying to find him. That's got to be scary as a young person. And I'm not saying that her children are little by any means, but what I'm saying is, even as a young person, it would be highly disturbing if another high schooler, my age group, right, that I went to high school with, all of a sudden went missing in the middle of the night, you know? And I would say that Sebastian would be more than capable of getting out of his window or, you know, walking out the front door or something. I just think, one, he would be caught on camera, and two, there would be some evidence of him leaving his house. And not only just camera footage of him leaving, but I'm talking about window, you know, that was left open. I think that was a major mistake that Chris and Katie overlooked in their story and in their timeline, telling everyone that, you know, we were expected to believe that Sebastian literally vanished from his bedroom. Like he evaporated, you know, he went poof, and, you know, that's just not possible, right? I mean, there's things in this case, you know, that are possible, that are probable, but there are also things that are impossible. And that one thing that's impossible is that Sebastian spontaneously combusted, never to be seen again. It's very sad to think that there's people out there that just want us to believe that and shut up. And I never will, because it's absolutely baffling to me if I'm expected to believe that even though Sebastian's window wasn't open, Faith's window wasn't open, the bathroom window wasn't open and unlocked, because let's be honest, if you're not going to run away for good and you're just going to run away to play with the kids in the neighborhood, which I have heard that theory, and I thought, well, maybe he was trying to play with the kids in the neighborhood. You know, maybe he did sneak out to play flashlight tag and something happened, right? But he would have left the window open for him to sneak back into the house before Katie knew, right? If he was being a sneaky teenager, which we've all been sneaky teenagers, myself included. Maybe you were a good kid. You know, I did things that I wasn't supposed to do from time to time, especially when I'm a teenager. They're asserting independence. You know, Robini with the kitties. That's cute, you know, and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, I can believe that Sebastian might be doing something like that, right? Say Katie obviously wanted him in bed, and the other kids were out in the neighborhood, and maybe he just decided, hey, I'm going to go out, but he would leave himself a way back in. I also have to consider that if he did leave and something bad happened to him while he was out there, say even by these children, which I do not believe that for 1 second. I think that's awful. Shame on you, fishy sticks. But yeah, because no, that's not okay. But let's just say that is the case. The window would have been left open still, right? Because it doesn't lock from the outside. So, or unless we were to believe that Sebastian made himself a key when Katie wasn't looking, right? I mean, yeah, they have those machines at Walmart, right? You could just make a quick key. And yeah, if they were in the store and Katie was across the store and Sebastian said, I have to go use the bathroom, maybe he did walk by himself to the bathroom and then he made a key. But that is very unlikely. Those are just maybe, could have, but very improbable. It's not something that I would put a lot of weight into or thought beyond just the initial, could this have happened? Well, and that's, I mean, Robini, that's such a great point. And Kai Kai too, thank you. Because like, that's the thing, like, it's like Robini saying agree, or I agree, and on behalf of herself and her son, it's for she should sue for slander, and because it is slanderous. Like, okay, so if it's true that this person was waiting in wait, then that's not slander. But if you're saying it to that somebody did this over and over and over again, I might add, because I thank you guys for telling me in the chat I wasn't wrong. Yeah. It's a little much. And then also, Steve Fischer is a liar. He's a liar. He has perpetuated lies about me. And I'm going to tell you that I may be a little bit skeptical of maybe the neighbors in a way if it wasn't for me knowing that he's a bullface liar. And he likes to pick on weaker people. People he perceives as weaker. He's one of those. Yeah, and they're directly involved, in my opinion. They're directly involved with all of this, right? I've been piecing a lot of things together from side research and just my own experiences. It's extremely hard to trust anyone in this one. Yeah, he's eating a nothing burger again, right? Exactly, little Miss Sharon. Yeah, he's serving us. He's trying to make us eat another nothing burger, right? He's serving that up for us. I'm like, I don't care how much you dress it up. You can put it on a pretty plate. It's still a nothing burger. But I do think that, it's something to be considered if it continues, or if it, heaven forbid, is going to cause issues, or has, I don't know, for the children involved. Talking about Bobby, excuse me, I'm sorry guys, I have to plug this in. Talking about Bobby's children, because they don't deserve that. I don't know if they're of age to take matters in their own hands, but that might be something too. To say, hey, look, you can't be saying these things about me when you have no basis for it. Carla says they totally ignore and claim there is no flashlights. He can see a kid chasing a cat and a guy walked his dog, but don't see two people coming from the Proudfoots with flashlights. I mean, Carla, it's mad. It's mad, isn't it? Because I'm like, what is the disconnect here? And I agree with you. Like, why? It's like these people want us to believe bullshit. And then when we call bullshit, they get upset. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. They can get upset if they would like, all day long. We all have entitlement to feelings. But in my opinion, this is all a big distraction. And they're saying, look over here at these and, hey, analyze this for, a show, when really all you're watching is a child looking for their cat. And it's easily explained. What's not easily explained is how Sebastian managed to get out of a neighborhood full of cameras in the middle of the night. And again, like Carla said, how are they overlooking this flashlight video where we see the activity and it's very apparent, right? We can see it with our own eyeballs. All deception and diversion, SI officer. And it's boy, you got to be careful. Robini, I like the little dab emojis. Those are so cute. So it's a very, very, very odd. And Lori, corruption is a really big one. And, we talked about it on Saturday, and, a really powerful video by another creator. We kind of broke it down and discussed, but it's so important for people to understand kind of what's going on the state level. And if that type of corruption exists on the state level, then we have to believe that it kind of trickles down and there's people that are helping the higher ups, right? Because let's just put it this way. The higher you are in the chain of command, the less dirt you're going to be doing, right? There's always that sort of pecking order, and, the ones that do, gophers, grunts, rats, right? I mean, basically those are the ones that are all in that, pool, and they peck each other. You know what I mean? But then you have the higher ups who are just calling the shots and telling people what to do. Now that exists on many different levels, whether people are wealthy, whether they're poor. It's human nature, Lord of the Flies. SI officer says we do need to look and ask and see, because it might be pertaining to what we know as far as the cat and the person. Well, I agree. And, I wouldn't doubt that if there was, say, some involvement from someone else, again, downhill, shit rolling downhill and trickling down in corruption, I really do think that they would, obviously throw the person under the bus and blame it all on that person rather than, say, Chris, Katie, Mama Socks, any of their family members, right? That's why they have those little grunts, gophers, and rats, snakes, whatever. Because they're the ones doing it. Typically, it's not going to be these two. And, if the police did check Chris out, which maybe they did, and maybe he was in Memphis, and if he was in fact in Memphis, that could be the reason why that he has an alibi, right? Let's just say he does. Now, Katie is the last one with her son, but, she's obviously played the grieving mother card. And I do think that from day one, Sheriff Craddock overlooked anything that Katie could have been hiding very easily, because he may have had the unconscious bias going, and then also the military connection, right? Because that's going to also aid with the unconscious bias. But then maybe his heartstrings were being played too by Katie. Like, she's a grieving mother. She doesn't know where her son is. She's, why put more stress on her? And, as a law enforcement officer, that's all you're looking at doing is finding the child, right? You're not really looking at everything, but you really should never only operate off of one assumption. And unfortunately, that's what they did here, in my opinion. Hey, perfectly imperfect boy mom, good to see you. And good evening. I suppose, oh, sorry guys, they make these so little, I swear. It's like, I can't say. I suppose SF had to prove his 15K. I mean, it's a lot, little Miss Sharon. It's like, what? And that's nutty. We do need to look and ask and see, because I went too far up in chat. I've already read that one. SI officer. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I've been giving him a hard time about it, because I do think that it's a bit much with only seeming to pull in old footage, present facts in a false way, and quite literally, Chris was yelling, and we heard the call recently, at Heather Cohen saying that, you guys aren't doing anything. You guys still haven't found Sebastian. So ha ha ha, and it wasn't in my opinion, a parent who was frustrated because the child's not found yet. It was more of a nana, 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 you can't catch me. That's the way I took it from Chris Proudfoot. I could be wrong. That's my perception. But that's how he's been. Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom says, is Fish Stick still in the picture or still MIA? I wonder why he disappeared. Well, I was wondering the same thing, and I thought he was kind of, did enough damage and kind of bowed out. But obviously he was still kind of behind the scenes, and I don't know if it was because of any particular reason or not. I don't know. It's hard to say. Oh, let's see here. Unfathomable. It's completely unfathomable, and especially when you learn more and more about the dynamic. Sasha Johnson says, it's really very dark and devastating. How could that have happened to Dog's grandson? Yeah, I know. Isn't that so sad, Sasha? Thank you for your concern and everything. I mean, it is. It's awful. There's a lot of ways that it could have happened, and I know they're doing they said they're still investigating. But I was thinking maybe it was being cleaned, or I don't know. I have an awful lot of respect for any weapon, It's shocking. Yeah, it is, SI officer. Oh, seclusion works. Are you gonna be getting like a surgery? I hope I'm not a disappointment. If I don't see you around, I'll know. I'll know why. Oh, SI officer says freezes everything freaking time. Annoying. Well, and this is where I'm at with this darn thing. It's like, it's so little. And I'm trying to get all your guys' comments here. Yeah, 1017. Thank you, Kai Kai. Yeah, 1017. And I think I added the 12 the other day, but then when I realized what the date was, I was like, well, that's not. I'm like, that's wrong. So yes, so the night before, and I don't even know how to say it, obviously, because he was reported missing at 6:38 in the morning, right? They supposedly, again, we don't know, but let's just, say if they got home at from the Texas Roadhouse around 7 p.m., right? And then Sebastian played for a little while, or excuse me, and then Sebastian took the trash can to the end of the driveway, right? So that may have happened around 7:15. Well, that we still have, an hour and 45 minutes unaccounted for bedtime at 9. So Katie maintains that, and that has been a consistent detail in her story. Bed at 9, right? Let him stay up a little bit later than usual, is what she told the news outlets and many of us. But then she adds in this thud, right? The thud at 10 p.m. She adds this thud in, and let's not forget that Sebastian was supposed to have been in bed for an hour, right? At that point, Katie is on the phone with her husband, Chris. She's also studying a chapter for school, and she's also falling asleep, according to Katie, right? And that's what she said. And so then the 10 p.m. noise was not made aware of until Katie spoke with Smiley Story on her podcast, Smiley Story's World, and she mentions a noise came from Sebastian's bedroom. And Smiley's like, okay, yeah, and she's like, well, did you go check? And Katie said, no, I didn't go check. But then when they spoke with Nancy Grace, and this is in March, right? So mid-March, we hear a noise come from Katie, and she said that. And then towards the end of March, she changes it to a thud, tells Nancy Grace that she said, Bubba, did you fall out of the bed? And then Sebastian says, no, ma'am. And then that was it, right? Like, he's supposed to go back to sleep. But that wasn't always what Katie said to everyone. What she said, and what she was very adamant about telling Heather Cohen and correcting Chris and making sure that the verbiage was to her liking, was that she told Sebastian, and this was the same thing she told Smiley. She told Sebastian, when she heard the noise and come from Sebastian's room, which is not uncommon, she tells Smiley, I told him, I don't care what you're doing in there, but you need to go to sleep. And she says it in a very stern, not yelling, but just as I said it, it's time to go to sleep. I don't care what you're doing in there. You need to go to sleep. Time to go to sleep. But she doesn't check on him. She doesn't ask him if he's okay. But of course, and maybe maybe there was public backlash. I'm going to say that is very possible. But here's the thing. She changes it completely and makes herself seem like a caring, concerned parent by saying, Bubba, did you fall out of the bed? Right? And then he says, no, ma'am, as if he's fine. If he, as if to say if there was something wrong with Sebastian or something happened to him that would cause enough concern to go check on him, he already gave her the answer that, no, ma'am, I didn't fall in the bed. In other words, I'm okay. but she never says, okay, well then you need to go to sleep, or, you know, okay, buddy, well, I'm glad you're okay, but let's get to bed. You know, we got school, and, you know, something like that, right? That never happens. And the story is changed right there, right? Because up until then, you know, it's, you know, spaghetti pancakes and talking on the phone and going to pick up the niece and going to BJ's and meeting the mom. And, you know, they left from BJ's by themselves and brought the groceries home. And then they went up to the strike and spare, but they couldn't play the game of bowling that they wanted to play. So they decided on the arcade instead because League was playing. And then they decided to go to the Texas Roadhouse, where we see Sebastian on camera for the first time in that time frame, which is basically a proof of life, right? This is how we know that Sebastian was alive and well and doing just fine with his mother between 6 and 7 p.m., right? And then that's where we lose Sebastian. We lose him when he walks into his own home. We lose him when he gets into his mother's vehicle and he shuts the door and she backs out of the driveway of the Texas Roadhouse, or the parking space, and she drives away. After that, we don't know what happened to Sebastian Rogers. Not only do we not know, but it appears that the police don't know either, because they keep coming out and saying there's no evidence, no evidence to support this, no evidence to support that. What evidence do you have, and what does it support? We will never know. And I think they're keeping it a secret because of the level of corruption that is obvious in the higher ranks. So it's going to be trickling down, you know? So, okay, so you can see that, like, shadows and subtle darkness. I wear a lot of black seclusion. I don't know if that helps, but then again, I have a dark background. I need to kind of change it up a little bit here. I don't want you guys to get bored of it. You got kicked out, Linda Hall. I'm so glad you're back. My goodness. Look how much light you can see. Well, I agree, Little Red. This is what's crazy, right? Like, you can see a ton of light. And it appears that here, I'll put it up again. Let me click that off. But, like, look how well lit everything is, other than the fact that there are no street lights, right? So many of us that grew up, especially like around in the city, you know, you have street lights all over, and it's really well lit most of the time in, you know, bigger areas and things. Now, once you get out by the country and things, in these smaller little, you know, subdivisions and such, it's going to be darker at night. You know, it might be unincorporated or something like that, and they don't have that like you would see in the city, right? Or more metropolitan area. But it's really well lit. And now I don't feel as bad, because I did tease Katie in the beginning, because she's like, it was so dark that night. And I'm like, girl, it's dark every night. Hey, Cinderella. Thank you for your kind words, Cinderella, on the short for dog. I really appreciate you. That was very sweet and kind, and I'm with you on that. It's hard to imagine. Little Miss Sharon says, SF got go and do your job. Stop being a pig. I know. Well, and he's very creepy too, Little Miss Sharon. I've heard some not so great things about that one, and you know, my experience hasn't been much better. My initial experience with SF was just fine and dandy. I will say that. I don't, you know, I'm not going to badmouth somebody just because I don't like them and lie on them. I'm not like that. I know he is, but that's not my style there. But not my cup of joe. But I mean, Sasha says there's proof the mom got up at 3:06 a.m. and their activity in the backyard at 3:10 a.m. and Sebastian is missing between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Seems mom is responsible, in my opinion. You know, Sasha, I agree, and I haven't had a chance to do as much research as I wanted to about how the iWatch data was released or how it came about. And feel free to let me know in the chat, guys. I always try to do independent research because, you know, again, I kind of have to be a little bit more careful with what I say up here. And, you know, I mean, I'm not going to just come up here and do a free for all like, you know, some people do, and it's their channel. They can do whatever they want. But I just don't want to do that, you know, because I think it's more proper, especially because nobody's been arrested, convicted, or anything like that. It's just a little bit more proper. But I do, you know, speculate all day. I mean, you know, I think about these things, and especially when they want us to believe that we should look at this video, which again, this is 10 o'clock, 10:17, right? 10:20, I think it's changed at 10:20. So, you know, a couple minute video, you know, where this kid is out there looking for the cat. And feel free to pinch and zoom if you guys need to see this better. But it's one of those things where it just doesn't ring authentic when they want us to look at some other neighborhood child that's not missing. And that's where I have a really big problem and hang up with that. Now, again, I agree. If there's all of this consistent information, right, then you would think that they would have enough circumstantial evidence to support something happening, especially because the light source goes back to the house. Again, even if Chris has an alibi where he was on the phone with Katie and he therefore creating an alibi for her during this time, right? Say he was in Memphis and the police have that checked out and he, you know, they were on the phone, but that was a ruse, right? Or again, setting an alibi for Katie because she would be the one that didn't have one. You have Seth at work on camera, right? Corrections officer, you know, buzzing in and out on the cameras, the whole 9 yards. And then you have Chris, who, let's say, he too has a solid alibi being in Memphis when this all occurred. That phone call could have been set up to create an alibi for Katie as well. And then they could do the blame Sebastian theory, blame the neighbor theory, blame anyone and look at anyone and anywhere but us. But we also have to consider that, say Seth was at work, Chris was also in Memphis at work, right? Or, you know, on a work trip, if you will. Something happens and Katie does the unthinkable, or it was all planned out for this to happen. Either way, or say it was an accident, that would still help Katie out being on the phone with Chris like that. And I do think that the 3 a.m. lights was a joint effort. And I really like Mob Crew and his assessment because of his analysis. You know, Mob did not, Chris from Mob Crew did not just go, you know, hey guys, I think this and, you know, and not produce anything, right? He analyzed these videos. He spoke with neighbors. Neighbors have reached out to him. You would be surprised, again, guys, how many people send me things as a new creator if they think that they can trust me with it. And I always try to respect people when it comes to them entrusting me with something. If they're willing to trust me and come to me and say, you know what, this is not right, and I do not know what's going on here, and here you go. I am going to always be very respectful and cautious with that information, and communicate but between what the person, you know, wants me to do with that, and also you know, making sure that I do my own due diligence, guys, because the problem is that when you become a YouTube creator, there are many people out there that are willing to lend you a helping hand. And you can't see me because I'm doing the air quotes, but they're very quick to do that. They're very quick to befriend you. They're very quick to say they have information that may or may not be true, right? So you have to be very careful. And I do believe that Chris exercises restraint in what he shows, and he does make sure that he does proper research before sharing it. I've also heard him, apologize if there was something that he got wrong. And that is a strong quality in somebody that's presenting information, right? Because then at least like, hey, if he gets it wrong, he's going to be straight with me and be like, hey, I have, I had this, or I misspoke. It happens all the time to us up here, guys, especially if we get up every single night or, several times. It's just bound to happen, right? It's bound to happen. And especially in Sebastian Rogers' case, I don't think anybody should ever be too hard on themselves for getting something wrong, because again, we just don't have any solid proof from law enforcement, so it makes us have to fill in the blanks. And Robini says, Cinderella, in the beginning, wasn't it Sweetie Pilo that said that the kitchen window was open on the camera? Yeah, so I did hear something about that, Robini. I did. I don't know which camera picked it up. I'm guessing it would have been the one, the Ring camera across the street, I'm guessing, right? Because that's kind of where although maybe their kitchen, I think their kitchen window is a little bit over more. SI officer says they don't want us to focus on them. They think they're going to get away with it, and their cronies come in and try to distract, bully, redirect it. It ain't happening. Well, and that's the thing, because I agree with that 100%. And it's even people that will go out on a limb just for them, like to feel a part of something, which is extremely disturbing in my opinion, because it creates a gang mentality. And so it fosters an environment where people are doing dirty things for people that didn't even ask them to do it. They're just like happy to do it. It reminds me of Stephen King, The Stand, when you have that little crazy guy, he's like, bumpty bump, my life for you. And he's like running around bombing the shit out of stuff. And, and you got him, and then my life for you, because he thinks he's going to be like ruling some shit. And it's like, whoa, totally nuts. Totally nuts. It shows the mental health in the YouTube true crime community to a T, because it's like they don't even have to be asked. They're extremely disenfranchised people who have a lot of trauma themselves, and inserting themselves into something that is bad, instead of them inserting themselves into something that's positive. And that's where we see all of this come from, right? Like people that are willing to threaten other people, or people that are willing to say, oh, I live right by that person, I'm going to go show up at their house. And, yeah, I'll be friends with that person for you, so that way I can hurt them for you. And then I can make sure that they can hear and feel and, record the hurt, and then I'll share it with them. And it's very disgusting. It's not right. And we have seen the threats from the beginning, the searchers getting threatened. We had the United Cajun Navy was threatened. We had Seth being threatened. You better shut your mouth. Oh, really, Heather, the PI for Seth. So you're telling me Bobby Simmons is talking to Seth and communicating with him directly and not going through you? Oh, we'll see about that. We'll see how long that lasts. And you're telling me that you have nothing to do with, zero guilty knowledge about what happened to Sebastian. When you say that, Chris, because that's the only reason that someone would be overly defensive, is because of that, because you had something to do with it. You have some guilty knowledge. You're an accessory after the fact. And we're not stupid. We're not stupid. They insult our intelligence. Remember Dr. Gary? And he's like a doctor, right? But it's like, I'm insulted, and I'm a YouTuber, right? Like, I'm very insulted. I'm highly insulted, because you want me to just eat your bullshit because you're serving it up to me. That's never going to happen. And a lot of us feel that way, right? And it's the same thing. Look, I haven't focused on Katie's iWatch history because I don't know for sure where that information came from. I'm reluctant to speculate on it, other than the fact that if it is true that there was an elevated heart rate at that time, it would absolutely match up with the infamous lights video. And so it would definitely solidify, confirm, and validate some of what I'm thinking, but it still leaves a lot of unanswered questions. Was it just an elevation in heart rate? Did she have a nightmare? Did she get up and run around the house because she figured out Sebastian was missing? What caused this? How long was the duration of the elevation of heart beat, or her pulse elevating? What does that look like? Because without having more to speculate on, I don't think that there would be a fluke on an iWatch, because it seems very precise and reliable. But, you know, I mean, it's just like whenever Kiki was telling us that you could change the Life 360, and I'm like, oh, snap, I didn't know that, you know? Yeah, very corrupt sissies too. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Melissa said she was searching at 6:30 in the morning, you know? Carla says, Rob Beanie, Mom said Sweetie Pilo came back later and corrected that window wasn't open. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Carla. Thank you, guys. Because, I mean, that's another thing that's very difficult. We're dealing with witness accounts, right? And it's just like we've talked about plenty of times here that I agree, SA officer. I agree. It's like we talked about a lot of times is that there could be details that are missed, right? Or it can be misinterpreted. We're all human beings. So these things are going to happen, right? And it doesn't have to be because somebody's manipulating the situation or deliberately lying. It could just be that this is what they're perceiving and this is what they perceived that night. You know, especially if it's a traumatic situation, sometimes it's even harder to remember. And sometimes there's details that don't come in until a little bit later, right? So I always did consider that when I was analyzing Katie's accounts of what happened. What made it very difficult was that Chris was always right there to interrupt Katie. And if he was in fact in Memphis, and that's what we're going to kind of work off of tonight, that he was in Memphis at this time, then he should be quiet and he should be like an emotional support pig or whatever he is, you know, instead of like going on and interrupting her when she's trying to tell the story about what happened to her. There's nothing more frustrating to me, or astounding for that matter, that somebody would be able to tell what happened to me better than me, because I've seen a lot of that crap going on. And it's actually ridiculous and absurd that you would think that you know what happened to me more than I know what happened to me. It's astounding, because I don't know how that connection happens, especially if I don't know you at all, you know. But I've heard a lot of people saying certain things, saying I'm friends with certain people that I am not friends with at all, and have nothing to do with. But I will stick up for somebody when I see someone doing something wrong and jerkish to someone else. But again, I'm not Katie. I don't know what she did that night. I only know what she's told us that she did that night. Same thing with Chris. Same thing with Seth, to a certain extent. But because the reason why I think Seth doesn't have anything to do with it is because his time cards were shown, right? We know that he was at work in a high security facility. Kathy Bartholomew says, in my opinion, I know a lot of local sheriffs in Oklahoma that the FBI took down. His son was cooking meth. And their son cooking meth, and their son was using his patrol. Oh boy, to run the just good night. Oh my gosh, Kathy. You know, and money is a motivator. Money is always going to be the top motivator, unless, you know, you might have dirt on somebody, maybe. Like, say there's something that somebody is like so embarrassed about, and you're going to come out and say it, right? And so you might try to do everything for them not to. But I wouldn't buy into that sort of extortion, because that's what it is. It's extortion. And I think that when somebody tries to do that, it's well, for one, it's illegal. But for two, it's basically only showing, you know, how horrible that person can be. Carla says, Chris was not home, or excuse me, Chris cannot come onto YouTube. He and his girl, so SF had to step in and cause a stir. I agree. I think that, well, I'm wondering if the $15,000 has run out for his services, but I'm also thinking the same thing because Faith has been in town, right, Carla? And, you know, and I'm sure it's hard to not say your opinions, you know. It is. It's tough, but I agree that we didn't hear anything from SF, and then now we just did. So I can see that being a reason. Well, and you know, he wrote a long post on X, Sasha. And to me, I'm like, okay, well, whatever, you know, like I don't, it's someone looking for their cat, you know. Oh, dang, SI officer. SI officer says, in my opinion, the thud is when it began. Yeah. I mean, I can see that happening. I could see that being the case, right? Something had to have happened at that time. Or they want us to believe something happened at that time and focus on that time. But either way, as a whole, it's still going to be a 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. Well, let's be honest. Maybe even 6:15, because Katie started driving around the neighborhood and she was seen by neighbors searching and looking for Sebastian, but she still hadn't reported him missing yet, which is understandable. I'm not saying she waited any type of a longer time, you know, than anybody else would. You're going to look for your child first, I would think, instead of just calling right away. Oh, crud, I pressed the button. Hey, Trishy, good to see you. Thank you for being here. So yeah, I mean, you know, those are my issues. Those are my issues. It's the brick walls that I hit, and then I'm thinking, okay, well, this is what we have to work with, right? So I mean, even 10 to 6 is a long time, you know. And then if we're thinking about something that happened at 3:10 a.m., then our time frame changes to 6 a.m., you know, 3:10 to 6, right? Not a terribly large amount of time. And that's what makes me think that's one thing that makes me think that maybe Chris was in fact in Memphis, you know, because it would be hard for him to get back. Not impossible, but, you know. And again, he didn't have to start work until 7 a.m. according to what's been alleged. We'll just put it that way. Well, and that's the thing, Lori. And, you know, she obviously didn't, but then she changed the story because she knew that Nancy Grace would probably think that. Like, what mother wouldn't check? Like, how come you didn't check? Or at the very least, she would ask, you know, how come? But Katie also brought in a very disturbing reason why she doesn't change, why she didn't check on Sebastian, or why she doesn't check on Sebastian since he's been older. And it always comes back to this SEX, right? Something is wrong there. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. I saw a pic froze where KP did the neck gesture and looks like CP was side-eyeing in stress. Yeah, yes, SI officer. That was CYN family, and I played it too. And oh boy, they were not pleased at me for that one. Which is, it's understandable. Look, people say things that make me pissed all the time. And, my private reactions are going to be different than my public ones. Let's just put it that way. But if you knew some of the things that I know, I mean, it's beyond someone saying something, right? It's like, it's pure evil. SI officer says, Lori, no, she didn't, in my opinion, because she also participated in whatever took place that night, allegedly, sadly. Yeah, I'm still wrestling with that idea. SI officer, and it's just because, I'm still wrestling with the whole timeline of events from 7 to, and I'm narrowing it down, guys. I'm narrowing it down. So, as of right now, today, because we're going to be rolling it out through the week, but 7 p.m., if Sebastian did make it home, and this theory does support him actually making it home, right? Not that I am discounting that there wasn't an exchange somewhere between the Texas Roadhouse and his home. SI officer says getting kicked out is happening like every 10 minutes. So annoying. Oh, dang. Is anybody else having that? I had to turn my phone on and off again today before I came up here, which is why I was like 2 minutes late. I apologize for that. I meant to tell you guys, sorry about that. I don't know why, but it was like, I came up here. Well, I tried to click the camera on and it was just like doing the little, buffering thing, and I'm like, what the heck? Kathy says the point to my story was corruption can and does sometimes go all the way to the top. Yeah, that's a great point, Kathy, especially with money, because that's motivating, especially to somebody at the top, right? Because they're not worried about a smaller amount of money, right? Because they have it. So absolutely, if they're going to get a cut on something that large, and it's amazing how lucrative math, and I'm not talking about arithmetic, can be, right? And it's sad, it's highly addictive, and then also causes a heightened SEX drive, right? And with that comes a lot of very nasty behaviors. Let's just put it that way, right? Because you're like out of your mind, right? Stoned to the bone on math. And then you're like participating in nasty things because it literally, like, I've seen a normal person, and and there's been a couple actually, who was of their right mind, and then they chose to do that. And I mean, it was like, I just call them 8 up. I think people who do math are 8 up individuals, and it's the math is what eats you up, right? It's just like your brain's all ate up. You don't make good decisions. You start doing nasty other things, and or you think you're doing something but you're really not. Like you think you're getting far but you're not. It's weird. It's very strange, and it's chemicals. Linda Hall says, this is my first time. I sure hope it wasn't an every 10 minute or so thing happening. Yeah, I don't know. And last night, or I'm sorry, Saturday night, I was listening back Sunday to my live, and it was like crinkly. Like some of the audio wasn't up to par, and usually it's decent. I don't have an issue, but hey, Tori Banks, how does KP know it was really dark that night if she didn't go outside? Tori, that's a good point. That is a very good point. Yeah. Well, and it's almost like she deliberately made it dark. Like if you know that it's that dark outside, right? Because, they lived in the neighborhood for what, like a year and a half or so, give or take. But like, if you already know that your neighborhood is super dark, why wouldn't you make the effort to make sure it was well lit, or at least around your home, right? Do your part for the neighborhood. But we don't see that happening here. And as a matter of fact, Dolly did show where Chris and Katie didn't have the floodlight bulbs in, right? And then they put some in, right? So they weren't in there when Sebastian went missing, but they put them in after the fact. And again, we've talked about this here too. Another thing that causes me to pause is that Chris was gone for most of the month, according to Katie. And if he's gone for those long durations of time, then you would think that she would want the outdoors to be well lit, especially because they have dogs, right? And I know they have a fenced in yard, so maybe she lets the dogs out and then they come in and she doesn't have to sit out there with them or whatever. But you would be taking the dogs out sometime when it's dark, and you never know. There could be somebody that's waiting in your yard or whatever. And it's just weird that they wouldn't have the camera set up. Katie worked for Brinks, or works for them. I don't know. She still does. I don't really care. But at the time, it's relevant that she worked for Brinks, because then you would think she would have a killer system. Yeah, disgustingly disturbing to help adults who bully a child and worse. Yeah, it's awful. I even saw some very negative comments, about the tragedy with Dog's family. And I was like, you people are sick. Sick, 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 sick. They can't stifle their hate, not for one day. I can't stand liars either, Carla. I can't stand liars. And it's a worse liar if it's somebody that's like, getting close to you just to screw you over. That's worse than a liar, in my opinion. It's like, because that's several lies and a long time of lying, in my opinion. SI officer says the audacity of the defensive, angry attitude trying to intimidate, so wrong on so many levels, and you know it. Yeah. And those tactics have been since day one, right? Because like even when Chris came up initially on Duchess for the missing, and maybe I'm different. I don't expect, especially like a guy, to mirror any of my behaviors, except for we're all human. But I mean, I might go up on Duchess and feel comfortable, because if it was my family member, like my cousin, and was like, hey, this lady that I watch, she wants to hear Sebastian's story, right? I would absolutely feel comfortable, and I would treat that person like gold for giving me the platform to to speak about my missing child, because there's a lot of kids out there that we don't hear about. As a matter of fact, I reposted, I need to go back and look, but another creator on the platform, Bob, I share his posts because he's always posting about missing kids and stuff. And even I've seen him do adults and, Silver Alert and whatnot. And today he was like, man, I had to post 3 different posts about a missing 2-year-old, right? So 3 different missing 2-year-olds. And I'm like, my goodness, what are happening to these kids? A 2-year-old, who takes their eyes off a 2-year-old long enough? And, that's not to shame the parents. And each circumstance is different. But, I mean, what is going on? It's so sad. And again, if that was my child, I would be gracious. I would be, grateful. But I would just be so glad that somebody was listening to me, right? Like, thank you for giving me a platform in order for me to be able to speak about my son and get his name out there, because that might have been her only shot to do so, right? So, but instead we have a petulant Chris Proudfoot, and Duchess is like, thank you guys so much for being here. And all he says is, you're welcome. And he leaves it at that. You're welcome. And it's like, it's as if Duchess is not the one doing the favor, but Chris is. And that's frustrating because we don't typically see that. Yeah, Sasha, you're right. The car pulling up is extremely suspicious considering they would have to know prior to the time of pickup. So why doesn't Sumner ask about the vehicle? What's with the vehicle? It's very important. I don't know, Sasha, and just, for a good visual for you guys, the vehicle in question is this one that, again, here's the clues for our 3 a.m. timeline, right? I mean, this is Katie's house. We see her lights are on in the windows, right? Again, a corrupted version. There's this mysterious vehicle in the neighborhood. Okay. Like, this is all going on at the 3 a.m. mark. And then we have these flashlights that were picked up. Subject 1 and Subject 2. Subject 2 comes from the house, meets Subject 1, and then goes back to the house with the flashlight. Now, I am not a detective, but I wasn't born yesterday, and my mama didn't raise no fool. So what happened? Because again, here's more footage from the neighborhood. 6:20 a.m. The bus comes through to pick up the first load of kids. Sebastian gets on the 7 o'clock bus. All headed to the high school, Beach High School. Here's Katie driving with every single window rolled up at a fast pace, faster than you would expect that to see from someone who is, quote unquote, looking for someone or something, right? Her windows should be rolled down. She should be driving slowly because look, what if Sebastian was walking around the neighborhood? What if his new medication had him so disoriented that he got up right before Katie and she didn't even notice and he, walked out the door or, whatever. But see, again, this would have been caught on camera. He wouldn't have made it very far without any shoes. Let's just be honest. That's another major clue. No shoes, no coat, no switch, no phone, no money, no snacks, no bag packed. His back, all he had was his glasses, a long sleeve black shirt, and Adidas style pants, black pants with the white stripe down the side. At least that's what we're expected to believe. And that's changed over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. So, I mean, that's where we're at right now with this. And if there is activity with a heightened heart rate for Katie at 3 a.m. around that time, and her lights are on, and then the flashlights happen, and she goes, and somebody came from her house and went back to her house, who else can we blame other than Katie? I mean, let's just be honest. Who else is left holding the ball there? Because she's the one. She's the only one. SI officer says people's return home, they're coming and going, etc. Very family. Of every family member. Well, and that's what they needed to find out. And I don't know that they did that. I mean, look, they had Chris's mom there, allegedly, but she wasn't interested in talking about her whereabouts or her involvement or even concern for what happened to Sebastian, her stepson. No concern at all. As a matter of fact, according to Seth, she was talking about new jewelry and vacations and laughing and carrying on. There's something very wrong with that behavior. At the very least, it suggests that she doesn't care about Sebastian, and her lack of taking Sebastian on the Disney trip with her and the rest of the grandkids shows to me that she did not like the child. She did not like him. That's the only reason you would do that, unless he had some sort of a condition that would have, hindered him from going, or a medical reason or something. But still, maybe then you accommodate for him and take him on a special trip somewhere where he can go. But we find out that that's not the case. Sebastian's fine. He could have gone to Disney. My issue is the vehicle and who's in it. Yeah, absolutely, Sasha. I'm very curious to find that out as well. I'm very curious to find that out. If I was living in that neighborhood, I would be desperate to find out who was in my neighborhood at the night the child that, whether I knew him or not, disappeared. Kathy said she would Kathy said she would provide footage of her driveway that night, but never did. Yeah, Robini, good point. Good point. I mean, I would definitely be trying to come out and say, my side of the story. But Kathy's come out and been very, nasty. I mean, I could see cussing and fighting and swearing behind the scenes, but good Lord, you're going to come up and do that stuff publicly and then wonder why people don't know what to think of you, and then the ones that do like you wonder about them because it's not normal behavior. Little Miss Sharon, thank you so much for gifting a Freedom's Raw Narratives membership. If you got a membership, welcome to the Dragon Tribe, and make sure that you tell our lovely Little Miss Sharon thank you. Aw, that's so sweet. Thank you. Hopefully I won't have to, but take your advice. Linda, did you get kicked out again, Linda? I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. Whoever is driving that vehicle knows where Sebastian is. No doubt, Sasha, because again, who else is left holding the ball in that case, right? Because again, just based on the flashlight video, what we see is, someone coming from the house with a flashlight, meeting someone else. That other person presumably goes back to the car where they were dropped off from, and Sebastian's missing, right? So the minute that who I'm perceiving to be as Katie walks back with the flashlight and, finds her way back home, then whoever is in the vehicle, then that's who I want to know what happened next, right? Because that's where we're left. That's where we left off. So I agree, Sasha. I'm very interested to know, Yeah, because they had to have driven him to where he ended up, Sasha, precisely. And, oh, hey, Shelly, thank you for being here. I'm glad. Congratulations. That's wonderful. And Sasha says we need to identify the vehicle. It's obviously drove past other homes where the footage is. Yeah, it was alleged that this car drove up Kellen into the neighborhood, right? Drove up Kellen, turned around, and then pulled onto Stafford Court, which Stafford Court is kind of like a little curve, right? There's like a curve and then it straightens out and, you know, around to the cul-de-sac and you can get out that way. But instead of going the cul-de-sac and, you know, the long way, this car does back onto Kellen and then drives straight out of the neighborhood. Now, I mean, that's the smarter option, right? The quicker option. But I think it's highly suspicious that they wanted to take the quicker option and they weren't taking any chances of driving around that neighborhood that night. They came right in, you know, in the quickest way possible. So. Oh, it's still doing it. You did turn it on and off. Usually with iPhones, that's, you know. You're all good, Lori? Okay. Jeez. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, Kathy, you know, and I'm just trying to narrow this timeline down, right? Because I know a lot of our friends will come in and say, you know, hey, Lady Freedom, can you get a good timeline going? Because it's tough to kind of nail one down. But I think we're kind of beginning to and I'm just trying to base it on what we know. I don't want to add any details in, like, you know, this is what I think maybe or whatever. I want to support my my way of thinking with some facts. You know, that's what I'm trying to do anyway, because I think that would give the best result, or results plural. Because I mean, gosh, I mean, and like Sasha said, it's like, even if we figure out that we know what happened, right, up into the flashlights, and we believe that this car is responsible, then, but where did Sebastian go from there? There are license plate readers in the area. There was, we talked about this before, guys, a while back, but they also rolled out a program where it was multi-county program to communicate between everyone and to kind of mainstream the process, right? And so that way, you know, not one county was going through something without the other county's knowledge of it. And especially because somebody could travel county to county and make it, you know, all the way up to this county without anybody knowing. This time, they're all in communication. So they did implement that program, and it was very shortly before Sebastian went missing, if I'm recalling. But I mean, it wasn't long. Cinderella says, in my opinion, there was never a thud because CP didn't hear it. Well, and that's the thing. You know, nobody asks Chris that question, Cinderella. That's a really good point. I've never heard anybody say, hey, Chris, you know, what did you think when the thud happened? Did you suggest that Katie go look? Or, you know, did you hear her? What did Katie say? Because, you know, whenever it was being talked about privately, right, Heather Cohen did speak with Chris about that a little bit, in terms of Katie telling him, no, you're wrong, right? Because Chris was trying to tell the story, and then Katie's like, no, you're wrong, that's not what I said. And then Chris was talking about playing semantics, and that you have to play semantics here, which is weird. You know, as some people aren't straightforward as others, I understand that, but to play semantics and know that you're basically messing with the situation instead of, you know, just being straightforward and honest, that's concerning again. SI officer says scramblers and jammers. Yeah. And that's not lost on me that something could have been used here or attempted to be used based on the communication skills that Katie has and so forth. And it's easy to make one of those. We talked about that as well here, that it's not terribly, well, and especially with someone who has knowledge of it, it's not terribly hard to replicate and, you know, make one at home. It's not legal. Again, like I was saying about some of these other activities, it's not legal, but that's what criminals do, or that's what you might be forced into if you decide to do something like this, right? Sometimes you'll think, oh, I'm just going to do this and be involved only to this extent, but what you don't realize is that once you're involved, it's going to keep snowballing. You know, your responsibilities might change, and you might have to lie more, or what have you, right? Or do something to help, right? sometimes people move people's remains around, and that would require some help, especially if eyes are on a particular group at first. There may be reinforcements that would need to be called in. I'm not saying it would be easy. It would be risky, but not an impossibility. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't know, Sasha. Why was the district attorney there if they believe the mother so much? Yeah, and that's a good point. And they may have been trying to put some heat on her, and I can see that. Especially, once you're 7 days in, you've searched the radius several times, right? You brought in reinforcements, people from other counties and whatnot. Yeah, I agree. I don't know all of the resources, and then to not find him. Lori says, yes, the jammers. Good night, Carla. I hope you feel better, sweetie. I'm so sorry. Sweet dreams, Carla. Aw, thanks, Lori. Dismantled later, in my opinion, allegedly, says SI officer. Cinderella says, in my opinion, they have the governor under their thumb. Yeah, Cinderella, that's a good point, because he was heavily involved in the beginning, and so was like the town commissioner. Am I saying that right? As well as the mayor. So a lot of resources, a lot of higher ups involved, And yeah, Linda Hall says, Cinderella, I'm having a hard time believing the thud too. Yeah, it's hard to believe, especially because that's something that Katie changed from, just a normal noise that Sebastian would, or that she referred to as it's not uncommon to hear, right? But then she goes and changes it to the thud. And before this, she's saying, no, I didn't go check on him. He's a teenage boy. I don't know what he would be up to in there. And so that I don't want to, knock because he's possibly, turning it into something naughty that he was doing as a teenage boy. And we're going to put it that way because, and it's, gosh, and I shouldn't even say it's naughty because it's not. I mean, it's just like exploring, but in the same way, it's like, that's maybe like something that that our brains don't need to be focused on, right? But that's where Katie focuses us, is like, well, sometimes Sebastian can do these things. And it's like, what? Like, okay, if that's the case, but it's an overshare. And it's unfortunate because it's embarrassing for anyone, especially like just think of how we were at that age, like everything's kind of like ew, gross, and boys, and certain things, and you're just like, I don't know, and you certainly don't want your parents, especially one of the opposite, sex, to be saying about you, right? Because that's even more awkward. Like, I can't imagine. I would always like rely on my mom for that stuff because I grew up with two parents, but if my dad even like, not today. Like, run away. Have a good day, Dad. See you later. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not talking about that with you. No, sir. Love you. Town Chat Cafe, good to see you. Thank you so much for gifting a Lady Freedom's Raw membership. Raw Narratives memberships. I can't even say my name right today. Thank you so much, and welcome to the Dragon Tribe. And please say thank you to Town Chat Cafe. She's another awesome member of our community here. And I'm going to do a members only, guys, this week. We're going to work it in. I'm thinking I'm going to do it probably Wednesday or Thursday. So we're gonna shoot for that. But I'll put it up early enough for everybody to kind of know that it's going to happen. And of course, if you want a membership, I need to figure out as well this week how to gift out memberships, because we get, it's been brought to my attention, and this is a while ago. So, you know, I mean, I'm terrible with that, but it's like 5 that they give you that you can gift to, you know, your people. And so I'm like, I need to do that. I need to figure that out before we do this. And, you know, maybe I'll like match it or something like that. That might be fun. We have so much more technology available to us. And now this was happening years ago, but was never brought to the attention that we have now. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point, SI officer. And, you know, digital evidence is really important. You know, I really believe it is. And just any of the technology that they have come across, really. Oh, okay. Sasha says, I wonder if CP's sister drives the sedan. That's why she wanted Katie to drive. You know, that's a good point. I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of vehicles these people drive. But I would think, you know, and that just seems like first day, you know, the police looking into that kind of stuff, you know, like just immediate connections. But I will say that, because even when I'm off, like I'm still working on things. And then there were a couple of phone calls that I had yesterday with some creators that I've been working with. But one of my reliable sources was one as well. And this person was telling me that, you know, there was a level of frustration from Seth knowing that there wasn't people that was really getting looked into around his circle. And then knowing that would make you believe that was happening on the other side of the aisle as well. Right. And, that's where my brain would go. So I can understand where that would be something to consider and be concerned with, because, you know, by all means check. I mean, if you're not guilty, you would have that attitude, in my opinion. Of course, nobody wants their family to be, you know, ridiculed, but to be at least to clear the air, make sure that, you know, you can eliminate someone, right? That's just more people that you could say, okay, check that off the list, that person off the list. They have nothing to do with it. Let's move on, right? But it doesn't seem like that's been something that has happened, in my opinion, you know, from my understanding. SI officer says, because in my opinion, he changed clothes multiple times, in my opinion, for some reason, by someone, in my opinion, they can't find it straight. They can't keep it straight, allegedly. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So SI officer, that makes sense to me. So basically you're saying that since he changed clothes, or since his clothes were changed multiple times, they can't really keep it straight. And that was another thing, guys. There was so thank you, SI officer. I agree. It was said that there was a graphic on Sebastian's t-shirt, right? It was a long sleeve black shirt, according to Katie. And there was some sort of character or depiction on the shirt that was either Minecraft, Star Wars, or Halloween. And those were Sebastian's 3 favorite kinds of shirts to wear. And, but they never narrowed it down. And I just find that to be so odd, because if we're to believe that Sebastian only had 3 pairs of shoes that fit him at this time, then if we're to believe a growth spurt happened, maybe he was growing out of some of his other clothes. So that would narrow the options down, right? And that's another thing that really kind of stops me where I'm at when I think, okay, could someone possibly have manipulated that situation, like you're saying? I mean, SI officer, that's a great point. Cinderella says, I agree. CP will be full of anger, in my opinion. He hasn't had an outburst for a while. Yeah, pent up emotion. Oh boy, I know. And it's that's such a good point. It's like the calm before the storm too. Like, especially with these guys that have like a really explosive temper, or someone that has like a pattern of behavior, right? Because there is always kind of that time when they retract and they're, they're not going to blow up, but they are still letting it bottle up. And then of course that does cause an explosion. And that would be with anybody. I mean, anytime you're stressed to the max and then some more stress is added on, that is going to not always, come out. But it also, it takes like a lot of self-restraint too. Like, you can't just go out and say whatever. I mean, if I did that, it wouldn't be good, even though I can do that here on my show, but it wouldn't benefit anyone really. Besides getting it off my chest. That's the only thing that it would benefit. SA officer says the family fun day of Melissa, the daughters and the sister, etc. Yeah, well, they were involved, SA officer, that's a really good point. I mean, see, they were brought into the equation in the day, and the fact that Katie also seems to kind of be going out of her way to make sure she's making an appearance at places where there are cameras also, causes me to pause. They need to look at everyone, and in my opinion, the jewelry for CB was payback for participation. Well, who, in my opinion, allegedly? That is something that is very smart, SA officer. In my opinion, it would explain it. It would explain it, because most of us, that hear that for the first time, we're like shocked and we're like appalled. We're like, what is she talking about? Why would she talk about that? Like, how could you talk about that at a time like this? We might hear that, that statement. We've heard that before, right? Like, how could you talk about food at a time like this, right? How could you talk about jewelry and vacations at a time like this? You would think you would be so worried and not focus on anything besides finding Sebastian. And you're right. Kathy has that vindictive and evil quality, in my opinion, that she would do something like that to turn the knife, just to turn it. Cinderella says not as many of us would be speculating if LE would speak. I agree, Cinderella, or put out a timeline to help us out a little bit, right? Put out the trash can video. What can that hurt? Tell us something that we can work on getting more information with, right? I agree. Because all it does is really cause more frustration, but they don't even to those who aren't speculating with facts. So crickets, here we go. Yeah, here we are. Yeah, and and it's very strange. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's very frustrating. I mean, Sebastian's been missing for too long, and before we know it, we're going to be coming up on Christmas again, and it's You couldn't get in the chat, Vic? Oh no. What the heck? That's strange. Hey Vic, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you. In my opinion, Cinderella Robini says exactly, they either aren't equipped or are purposely ignoring things they could be doing. Yeah, and I would say in a smaller department, we would see maybe, less technology, less, people working there, right? A smaller staff, things like that. But here, I don't see that. I mean, they had everybody come out, and not even Ken Widener, the emergency management director, has come out and said anything. And he was supposedly the one that checked the sewer systems. So yeah, which does absolutely lead me to even more so to corruption. Yeah, I know, SI officer, and I can't help but go there too, because it's just something isn't right. Why would they not have any type of urgency that we would, be used to seeing, or that we have seen in other cases? Rob Beanie says the car had to leave the neighbors too. Where are all the license plate readers, in my opinion? Yeah, great point. I mean, I think they're located in and around the Hendersonville area, and then surrounding counties as well, I think, participated in that, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, Sabrina Smith, good to see you. No, you're not blocked, Vic. Oh, goodness sakes, no. But if you guys ever think that you got blocked because the buttons are so close together, oh my gosh, send me an email, because I think it was poor Trishy. Oh my gosh, I felt so bad. She was blocked. And I'm like, how the heck did that happen? Yeah, Robini just said I don't have any issues tonight, Vic, but others have. Oh, is it a Google Chrome thing? Hey, Sammy G, good to see you. Hey, Sabrina with the bunny. Sammy G says, I don't believe the license plate was changed or covered. From the screenshot I have, it actually looks like they were taking a license plate off of the top, and there was a different one underneath. Okay. Well, that would throw things off a bit now, wouldn't it? That's interesting. Just a little bit. Hey, momming it up. Good to see you. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Doing well, doing well. We have 2 Sabrinas in here tonight, don't we? So good to see all the Sabrinas. Oh, feed those horses, little Miss Sharon. Aw. Horses are such beautiful animals, I should say. Lori. Something is going on, and I think it's, who knows? And I'm on StreamYard, by the way. I just use the StreamYard. I don't know. Yeah, the little duck is up there. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point, Town Chat Cafe. I have not. Whenever I set it up, I took advice because I didn't know really what the normal was. And this person told me, like, if you put it too low, then people will get mad because then yours is lower than theirs or something like that. But if you put it too high, then people will be like, oh, who do you think you are? And so I'm like, I don't know. And, we wanted to do more in terms of members only. This will be the first one. And I also need to figure out how I can do a book giveaway for Jana's book. And it would be all digital. You guys won't have to give me your address, please. I'd rather not have it, especially the way these disgusting people operate here. No, I do not want anybody's address, but I think it'd be cool if I could send you, your gift as a link, and I'm going to work on doing that. Because that was going to be our first. And then I started being heavily harassed, and I told Jana I was going to take a break for a little while, but we're back to. And as a matter of fact, I need to work in another live about Crystal as well. Vic says, Linda, I didn't believe there was a thud in case he was found with an injury at a thud. Yeah, Vic, that is a very strong theory. And I can see where you're going with that. I could definitely see that. Vic says, it's like added in because it would explain if, say, Sebastian had a head injury or something like that, or any injury, so to speak. Because, I mean, give me 1 second here, because I just sent this over to someone. We were talking about it last night. No, not that, silly. All right, hold on a second. Okay, it was this one, because I found it. And this is Mandy from Spirit Seeker Squad that has such a keen eye. But the bite marks on, that is a close-up of what is presumed, in my opinion, to be bite marks on Christopher Proudfoot's arm that seem to match Sebastian's teeth. I think those are too big to be Morky scratches. Morky scratches. Yeah, I mean, I know Vic says, what child has 3 pairs of shoes? At least 10. I got at least 10. You know, I mean, I'm a big shoes person. I love buying shoes, and so I probably have way more than many people do. But in this, I got at least 50, Vic. You're like me. Yeah, and see, that's the thing. I mean, it's like, oh, but, you know, a little boy, I would think at least like 5. That was kind of, you know, but like Katie wanted us to believe that Sebastian grew 2 shoe sizes, but I have to call bullshit on this as well, because unless my eyes deceive me, it looks like he's wearing the same size as he is in the Texas Roadhouse video, which again kind of makes me wonder, you know, what's up with that? What's up with that? Yeah, the new video that was put out, it's weird about the matching shoes, Vic. I agree. I mean, now maybe a mom and a daughter, or like, say you're participating in like a family photo, maybe everybody might buy like similar looking sneakers. I can see something like that. But typically you contrast the girls and the boys. I don't know. It is odd to me. And I always kind of thought that was maybe to fool the situation, right? Aw, thank you, Lori. Yeah, great job of hitting the thumbs up, guys. Aw, thank you, momming it up. You're so sweet. Thank you. You guys are great. I do find it, Cinderella says, I do find it very strange, Vic. Oh, hey, Magic Star. I'm sorry. Did I miss you there, girl? Good to see you. Tina Girl, hey, good to see you, Tina Girl. Maybe matching shoes with a daughter, but hard, maybe. Yeah, that's my thing. I mean, you know, I'm not saying that moms and sons can't do that, or, you know, I hate to say that, especially, you know, but I have a hard time with it. I will just say this, that maybe some, well, you know what, actually, I remember perfectly in Perfect Boy Mom, she said that she could like wear her son's shoes, or maybe that they're similar. I do remember that, something like that. But I will say, like, I don't know if a boy, it depends on the kid, you know, it depends on the person, like, but I don't know very many boys that want to sport what mom's wearing. Usually at that age, like when they're little, you know, they like absolutely love their moms and stuff, and I get that. But it's like when they get older, you know, I don't know that they would be sporting the same. I don't know. I just don't think my brother would be rocking the same shoes as my mom. I mean, not that there's a problem with that if they do. I have been noticing quite a lot lately that in other missing cases where people are missing were wearing dark pants and dark shirt and shoes that were alike. Really? Huh, that's interesting. Town Chat Cafe. Yeah, it's weird. It's just hard to believe because, again, the narrative that was being pushed was that Sebastian walked off. I don't know why he walked out that door, but he did, right? He's never done it before, and I don't know why, but he did. And please come back because you're not in trouble. I just want my baby to be okay. That was another one that was very reminiscent of Chris Watts, right? Because he said the same thing. I just hope they're okay, right? I just hope they're okay. But we look at him and we know that he took Bella, Cece, Nico, and Shanann. He was standing there on the porch trying to make the news anchor believe, and all of us that were going to be watching it, that he had nothing to do with this and he had no idea where they are and he just wanted them to come home. And then we find out that he actually pled guilty to slaying all 4 of them. Linda Hall says, my cat jumps up on my screen when I turn it on and she sees movement on it. Just in case she blocks anyone, apologize in advance. Linda, oh no. Well, did she see the, I know that you probably read her, the title for the night, Meeeeow. Easy to get on and get away fast. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and they did a whole in and out maneuver in the neighborhood too. I mean, just optically, they didn't take the long way around the neighborhood. They came in and, and like some people might say, well, Lady Freedom, if they were going to just like park onto Stafford, then they wouldn't have drove all the way down Kellen and taken that risk. And it's like, yes, but I want to remind everyone that it's kind of the working theory that they drove up Kellen and on their way back, they dropped off subject 1 with the flashlight, right? And then we have the getaway driver and then possibly someone scouting too, right? But nevertheless, this is kind of the setup in the neighborhood. So then they park on Stafford and wait right there, and then they do the easy out. Yes, it was a full moon that night. Yes, it was. Cinderella says, Lady Freedom, it was a full moon that night at whatever the time the real trash truck came in the neighborhood. Many of SF's pictures are very light, in my opinion. Well, I agree with that too, Cinderella. And I think like he has done work on lightening the images and things like that. So why hasn't he tried to lighten the images of the flashlight video? How did he rule the flashlight video out to begin with? I guess and I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm not being a jerk to him or anything when I ask that. I'm just saying, like, why don't you want to look at it? Like, what ruled it out for you? What's the, and why is this other video, really important, and why do you want us to see it? Why do you want us to pay attention to this one? Oh, hey, I might want to go to the videos where the video is. Okay, here we go. So, I mean, this is the whole video. He wants us to look at this one, and he wants us to discount the flashlight video, right? They've wanted us to discount that since March when it was released. Even Sheriff Craddock cast doubt on the flashlight video, but he didn't completely he didn't completely discount it because it's part of Sebastian's case file. So in that way, I'm like, well, why is SF wanting us to look at this and not worrying about the other? Yeah, Magic Star, that's so true. I'm seeing too many parents responsible for the disappearance / unaliving of their children, like Melina I'm going to say this, I hope I say it right, Fredolin over the weekend. You know, is that the one that Justin covered, Star? I didn't see that. I didn't see that one. I think, unless it was the one that Justin covered, the newest one. That's sad, and I agree. I think a lot of these cases that we're seeing have parental involvement. Sabrina says, I would like to know who did CP and KP's lie detector test. Who would only ask 5 questions for KP and 13 for Crispy when Seth's took 3.5 to 4 hours? Such a great point. You know, Sabrina, I'm worried about that too, because, you know, Chris, according to Chris, Katie was given the lie detector test by either Sumner County Sheriff's Office, the TBI, or the FBI. It was never confirmed. He said she did that 2 or 3 days after Sebastian was reported missing. They performed that test, and then he didn't take one until April 9th, and he alleges that it was either the TBI or the FBI, and he goes, yeah, you know, something like same difference, and it's like, no, actually that's completely different. One's a state level, and the other one's FBI, which would be the federal level, right? So, and then I have to agree, you know, 5 questions, 13, and then Seth gets 4.5. But, you know, we have to remember too that Seth went to Nancy Grace, and she is very thorough, you know, and we know who administered Seth's lie detector test. She's amazing, isn't she, Vic? Mandy's amazing. She's such a sweet person, loving, good-hearted, and very detail-oriented. Like, I would totally put the fresh set of eyes and ask Mandy, could you look at this again for me? Because she's very detail-oriented and picks up on a lot of things. And, you know, this was one of them, and we were talking about it the other night, and then I sent it over while we were discussing the case yesterday, because I just thought to myself, you know, I mean, the proof is in the pudding here. Or at least one more thing to consider. Tina Girl says they do look like teeth, and they didn't let that poor child have anything. Yeah, well, and you know, I think that Sebastian would fight back if he was in a position where he needed to. I do, and I think because it's instinctual, you know, and it's just a tough situation. Well, and that's a good point. SI officer says, I can only imagine how much more angry he got once he was bit, in my opinion. Poor Sebastian. Yeah, that probably set him off, right? Because, you know, again, Sebastian's not only leaving behind, you know, DNA from his mouth, but he's leaving behind dental records that can be checked against his, you know, his dental records. Yeah, Lori says, sorry, it's so heartbreaking. She can be so entertaining at times, Linda. I don't quite understand the 2 shoe size thing. Yeah, I'm stuck on that, Sammy, because, like, why would there's something surrounding these shoes, because again, it's not accurate, and Katie went to the extreme, in my opinion, of explaining that Sebastian's toes were in the front when he came back from his dad's house, and I said, get in the car, we're gonna go get you some new shoes, and she acted like, oh God, oh dear, here we go, you know, oh, you know, we had to go get more, you know, another pair of shoes right away, and I don't see that. They look the same size to me. Mama says my boys don't maybe 2 pairs because they grow too fast. Okay, thanks, Mama. Yeah, but once the growth spurt slows, then a lot more. Yeah, I think like 2 pairs of sneakers, 1 boots, 1 dress shoe type, typically house shoes and slides. Yeah, that's so true, and that's what I was wondering too. You know, because you could get, some of those hard soled, house shoes or slippers would be more sufficient than, say, just being like barefoot completely or in socks. You can kind of you would be able to make it a little bit farther wearing a house shoe than no shoe, Yeah, I know. I don't know. What are they waiting for to arrest these two? That's my question too. Because like I said, I feel like there's enough when we look at and consider everything, and especially when it comes to the ABUSE that I believe that Sebastian endured at their hands, Yeah, that's a good point. Magic Star says, I've been scratched by dogs playing and never had a curved mark like that. And that's the thing. It's like imprinted, right? Star, it's like, because, yeah, you're right. Little dogs, especially, because they have the little paws and Katie said that they made the marks because their nails had not been trimmed. But even when, they've just been trimmed, they still don't make a mark like that. And again, like you said, if they're scratches, because that's what, Chris says they were scratches, those don't look like scratches, in my opinion. Oh, sorry, Mom, and I put that up twice. So yeah, way more than a pair or two of footwear total. And interesting, never thought about that. Yeah, I'm glad, Mom, and that you said that, because I know, you have a son that age, and then also, I like to know what the boy moms have to say about it, because, as a girl mom, I mean, and I think girls in general, we have to have our little, our open-toed sandals, our closed-toed ones, we have to have this pair and that pair to go with this or that, and so it's, girls in general, I would think, would have more shoes than the boys would, but not a terrible, because like you said, you got to have like dress shoes for church or, stuff like that. Heaven forbid you have to go to, someone's wake or something like that. I mean, you want, a nice pair, because you'd hate to have to go buy it in the last minute, and then just depending on extracurriculars, because I know like even kids that are in choir and stuff, they probably have nicer, like a nice pair of shoes, to wear, just depending. And, I just can't forget, especially because in Mob's video, Chris had put, Chris from Mob Crew put the audio of Seth playing Sebastian, calling him and asking, saying, hey, Dad, can you, tomorrow is picture day, and could you bring me something, appropriate to wear? And just so sweet. And it's heartbreaking. Hey, Holly S., good to see you. Tina Girl, I do think that Chris Watts had help as well, and I think it was Nicole Kessinger, in my opinion. But then, we never found out, because he took the fall for all of it, but then he subsequently wrote a book, and, well, Sharon Cadle did, and, he's like blaming, oh, she's devil in the blue dress, right? Mama said don't mess with her, and I was like, oh please, but your mom didn't like Shanann either, and it's my best guess that his mom wouldn't have liked anybody. Nobody's good enough for her sweet little Chrissy. Vic says my daughters would not even wear nothing close to what I was wearing at any age. That's true, Vic. Oh my gosh, right? But it's funny, like the one year, I think my daughter was it freshman year? No, was it probably, I think it was sophomore year. She was like, oh my gosh, Mom, I need to have a pair of Birkenstocks, and I'm like, well, what kind? And they were the ones that we all used to wear back in the day, with the socks. So I'm like, oh yeah, sure, here's $200 for this Birkenstock. I'm like, and they weren't selling them at Walmart at the time, of course, but I mean, that would have probably, cut it. But it was funny because I was like, oh yeah, I remember those days. But yeah, I think, yeah, you're right, Vic. I don't think my daughter would have the same style or taste as me. at any age. That's such a good point. Good point. They open their mouth, my blood pressure goes up. Vic, mine too. Yes. Yes, mine too. And then especially Chris, like Katie's not as bad, but I get annoyed because of how nonchalant she is. And then also she's always kind of tripping herself up. So I'm like, oh no, you know, like, I mean, gosh, it's hard because people are like, well, how could you, you know, think that the parents had anything to do with this, or you're attacking innocent people? And it's like, no, I don't want to attack anybody, but here's what's pointing towards this direction. I'm not coming up with this and saying, you know, I don't like Katie's voice, so, you know, you know, but at this point it is becoming annoying, right? Because it's like the lies and, you know, just the way things are said. And, ooh, Vegas time. Yay, Holly S. That's fantastic. I hope you have a good time. Hey, C. Taylor, good to see you. Yeah, lying liar who lies, in my opinion. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, it's just odd because there's no reason to lie, you know, and I know there's been some truths that have been told even by Seth, and people are like, well, why did he say that? It's like, well, because, I mean, he's being truthful, I mean, for one, so that's always nice. Tina says, LOL, they completely ignore the flashlight video like it doesn't exist. Yeah, and they want us to look at this other video, and I'm like, there's nothing that makes me think that there's anything nefarious going on. Now, if I saw another child that was wearing long sleeve black shirt and Adidas pants, my jaw would drop and I'd say, holy crap, what is this? You know, what do we have here? This is completely different. But when we see, you know, and I'll show you all again. Oh, there we go. What we are referring to. But I mean, this isn't even in, you know, an appropriate time frame, because at 10:17 p.m., Katie said that she was on the phone with Chris and that she had previously just heard a thud around 10 o'clock, and that Sebastian said, no, ma'am, I didn't fall out of the bed, when she asked Bubba, did you fall out? But again, that was a different story altogether. Oh yeah, I would love to see it, guys. Hey, Bubby, good to see you. I'm sorry, Bubby, if I missed you there. Sammy says, right, seems like a lot of bites have just been a nick or a little gouge, not with full curve. You're so right. Yeah, and I mean, gosh, just a great catch by Mandy too, you know, because she kind of zoomed in to where you could see it. And, you know, here's my thing. If I'm Holly Thompson and I'm sitting across from this guy, I'm going to think right away that something happened, something nefarious. But she doesn't do that. She's got more of a Pollyanna approach, and I get that she's not. Ooh, a pork chop, Lori. That sounds good. You know, and I get that she's not an investigative journalist, I don't think. She's just kind of like an anchor, and she was doing an interview, and of course she probably didn't want to, you know, burn any bridges, because obviously they're being gracious enough to talk with her. But I don't see that being, you know, reciprocated, and I think it should be. At least I would feel indebted to somebody who gave me that type of a platform. It's very, it's almost like demanded and expected instead of appreciated. And then also, they do the weirdest things in these interviews with Holly Thompson. And I don't know what it is about her and why they feel so comfortable, but like Katie is giddy and laughing and weird in these interviews, you know. I agree, C. Taylor, just one of SF's many distractions. Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to deny it, because again, if he's not even going to consider the other video, and he's never tried to come out and, you know, explain why he doesn't believe that it's relevant, then it's odd. Yeah, anybody can see the teeth marks. What the hell? Like, I know. It's crazy. And then people are like, no, those are scratch marks. It's like, okay, well, I get that people are going to think differently and not everybody's going to think the same. But in the same way, it's kind of hard to deny when you see it from that perspective or that angle. And Magic Star says, in my opinion, the level of confidence he had to wear a short sleeve shirt in that interview was with the imprints on his arm shows he knew LE was on his side. Yeah, he, and that's a great point, Star. And it kind of brings in what Chris McDonough was saying when Josh had him and Dr. Gary on the lab that we went over. He said that the longer that LE doesn't put out at least some kind of crumbs for the public, it puts law enforcement at a disadvantage, and it also gives whoever was responsible more confidence. And we've watched that, especially as Eric Craddock would come out and say, the parents have been cooperative, and that was probably a boost in confidence too, because then Chris comes out on Smiley's and brags about beating Sebastian with the belt, hitting him with the belt. He brags about his parenting style in throwing Sebastian's belongings in the trash can, and making him walk them out to the street, things like that. And it does breed that confidence. Now, that could be an alternate strategy, and I don't think that there's only one strategy to use, but I do think that it's something to be considered, SI officer says he wore long sleeves that morning, so they never checked and never followed through with proper protocol. Yeah, and you would think that they would at least bring the parents down for questioning. At the very least. I mean, you don't have to make them, make it worse on them, but just bring them down for the questioning and, take pictures if you have to. Look for those injuries. But they never did that, and that's so disappointing, because look at where we are now. And then they get mad at us for asking for evidence that, is not there. And they're saying, well, we don't have any evidence. God. And it's like, okay, Napoleon, settle down. You should have some, though. You should. Because it's pretty sad that you don't. Why don't you? Why does it take a YouTuber with a keen eye to pick up on these things? Why, as an investigator and a detective trained, do you not pause when you see these things, SI officer says they took their information, in my opinion, as friends instead of following protocol. I would have to agree, especially if they only asked Katie 5 questions. That is completely mind-blowing to me. Aw, thanks, Bubby. I appreciate you being here. Whether it was purposely selective or what, we can only speculate. Yeah, I agree. And, some of the things, even if law enforcement was to come out and tell us more, there would be still, things to speculate on. But it would just help, Oh, that audio, Bubby, is just like his sweet little voice, and he was just so excited to get, leaving his dad a message. He was happy about school. He was happy about picture day. He wanted to look, his best. Yes. And Sebastian, he just is precious. You could just tell. And like I said, it's frustrating to think that there may have been like a school, a behavioral school in question, and I can't discount that either, because that was something that they were absolutely looking into, according to all 3 parents, but that's not something that they told us to begin with. As a matter of fact, they tried to make us believe that everything was just fine. Now, again, I have to, put in the caveat that there's a lot of us out there that wouldn't be very quick to tell our whole life story right off the bat either. I understand that. But you can't expect us to believe you when you're lying and you've been caught in lies and inconsistencies in the story and all of that. Hey, Lucy Day, thank you for hitting the like button. Nah. We're going to be having people making pork chops in the chat, Lori. Late night pork chops. The feet throw all of this ridiculous crap at us and expect us to believe the BS. Yeah, and that's what's really, really difficult. And, you know, an innocent person wouldn't need to do that. That's where I really get hung up too, is because there's got to be something that they're hiding, whether there was an accident, whether it was deliberate, whether it was premeditated, which I do think it was. I mean, you know, I might change my mind, but I haven't really, I just can't get over it. SI officer says children that go missing, an Amber Alert or not, it needs to be changed that it is immediately treated as a crime scene from now on and conducted as so. Yes, SI officer, that is what I would like to see. Absolutely. No matter what, it needs to be taped off, quarantined off, limited exposure for, you know, contamination of the crime scene. I mean, there were a lot of things that were major missteps in protocol, in my opinion, as well. That is such a great point. And, you know, when I thought about Sebastian's law, or a law for Sebastian, that was my way of thinking as well, was like, okay, let's make it to where this can never happen again like this, right? Because it shouldn't have never happened to Sebastian. It just shouldn't have. He doesn't deserve this crap. You know, I mean, nobody does. I wouldn't want something like this to happen to my child or myself or anybody for that matter. Not even my worst enemy, for the police to just say, oh, well, that person's gone. I don't know what to tell you. Get over it. Big girl pants, pull them up. You know, I mean, that's ridiculous. This is a human being and a child at that. You know. So. Yeah, Mob Crew with the cat. Yes, Bubby. I mean, it's like, you know, that's why I just made a silly thumbnail for tonight with the cat on it, because I'm like, you know, and everybody was telling me, because I didn't get a chance to like do any research on it before I showed it on Saturday, because we had a different show plan, but I definitely wanted to pull it in, and then I figured we could do this for tonight and you know, see what you guys think. And I might not have like picked up on it right away that it was a cat, but it definitely, you could tell someone's looking for something, right? Or someone. A lot better than, you know, in my opinion, Katie and looking for Sebastian that morning, because, you know, this is what she supposedly looked like when she was looking for him. You know, the windows rolled up, again, driving down the street at a higher rate of speed than you would think, seeing if somebody is, you know, looking for someone or something. Again, Momming It Up says, SI officer, that's what Seth was saying. He's trying to get laws and things. I agree with you and him 100% on that. Yeah, Mom, and it's a great way for a parent to at least feel like they can make a difference after the fact. And, you know, because it does have to be so frustrating, and there's got to be something that you can feel like you're doing to help, you know, and help the situation, because it is, you know, it is not a good situation to be in, and you know, that can bring you a sense of control, and also, you know, and I'm not talking about it in a bad way. I'm just talking about, you know, feeling like you can do something more than just, you know, sit around and wait. And, you know, Seth has put miles and miles on his car, guys. He was saying that to us the other day on his live, that he's been following up on leads and, you know, that sort of thing. So we do have forgetful moments for 100% Star. We do. I know I do. Sometimes I'll be like, I don't know. I love horses too, Vic. I love horses. Star says, my great-grandmother was in her 90s when I was a teen, and she could have me, she could leave me in the dust. That's funny, Star. Never underestimate the older people. They're wise. Aw. Little Miss Sharon, you lost your horses? Aw. I'm so sorry. That's sad. I'm sorry. I'm looking for your comment. I missed it, I think. Oh, okay. I have 5, 4 in the past 2 years. Aw. Horses are they have such great personalities, and I've learned a little bit about equine therapy and how they can really help people who've gone through trauma, or just kind of as a therapy to help. I will ask again in case someone is in the chat who knows where and what interview live were they discussing CP and his Roman collection. CP and Roman collection. I do not know. I'm not sure, SI officer. Hopefully someone will in here. I did write that down before too, because I remember you asking. Or the infrared crawl space video. I want to say, I'll just put it this way. I know most of these interviews very, very well. So it would have to have been one that was on Cluminati, Granny. Did he interview with Jay at all, or was he on her panel at all? It's got to be one of them. And maybe another, like a Queen Bee one. Because those are the ones that I probably haven't watched, because I'm not a big watcher of those channels unless I have to, unless they do go on there, and but when let me ask you this, SI officer, was it on his recent tour when he was being especially nasty and and going from place to place, like right before his court with Betty, or because those I'm not as familiar with. Bubby says, but I understand why would they have taken that in the case. Oh, if that's okay, excuse me, Bobby, sorry. But I understand why would they have taken, if that's the case, or they talk to her. What's the whole purpose of this? There's money involved. Is there insurance if something happens to Sebastian? In my opinion, the only insurance policy I've heard of, Bubby, was of the Gerber Life program. And usually, like at the hospital, they'll give you that option and paperwork, and then you fill it out, and then you pay a small amount a month until the child's 18, and then they can take it out or reinvest it how they wish. So yeah, the Roman collection. I never heard of the crawl space video until Sasha mentioned it here a while back. Yeah, same here. And I haven't heard anything about it since. I've been keeping my eyes peeled. I was also looking for that one with Crabtree too. that mob crew. I know I've heard it, driving me nuts. My mom was chasing me to kick my butt. I climbed the tree and she climbed up after me. With my kids aren't even safe. Vic. That's for sure. Magic Star says, Little Miss Sharon, they were blessed to have such a loving horse mama. Thanks, Star. That's very sweet of you, and I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, I see. Bubby says it came out wrong. I mean, I might have read it wrong too, Bubby. My apologies. Says I meant it. My opinion, like Sebastian went missing. Is there any insurance on Sebastian, in my opinion? Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. And then when Katie was asked that question, she said his father has an insurance policy on him, but she left it at that. You know, I remember Smiley saying, you know, was there any insurance on Sebastian, like life insurance policy, that sort of thing? And, you know, Katie didn't answer. And then Smiley said, well, did any of you all have that? Like, even through work, sometimes, you know, if you have a really good benefits package, that will be part of it. And, you know, you can have life insurance for your, you know, your family or policies on them. But then Katie just said his father has one on him, like that. And like very, again, petulant, like, you know, defensive, in my opinion. 3 men were discussed, says SI officer. Oh, poor Vic. So it's not funny she was nutty buddy. Aw. Yeah, and you know, and that's the thing. I mean, that's something that's important to consider if something really bad happens, like say we have a missing child, you know, Sebastian's missing and he's been missing for, you know, over 1.5 years now. You know, what kind of dynamic was there? What are we looking at here? You know what I mean? Like, what are we looking at? And it seemed like Sebastian was in trouble at the Texas Roadhouse, in my opinion. Seeing the way Katie was, her body language towards Sebastian, and then the fact that she harped on that in the first interview, you're not in trouble. And then Chris was like, he wasn't even in trouble. Well, how would you know? You weren't home. I guess he would be told the minute that Sebastian did something wrong, you know, because he'd need a punishment for that, you know. Ugh. He's been all over the tubes. I know that's the hardest part, C. Taylor, you know, because I'm good with the first Duchess interview. I'm good with, you know, Holly Thompson, good with Only Hands, good with the other Duchess, good with, you know, Smiley, and then Terry Lynn, and then who did it next after her? It was Clue, I believe. I mean, all of these, and then we did, you know, Bobby the Neighbor talked about this, but that he wasn't there. But it had to have been on that last tour, I'm guessing. See, if it was not in the interview, I think it might have been on Donahue, 2 other men. Lori says, Miss Sharon, I'm sure you gave them the best life. Oh, CP. Okay, thanks, SI officer. CP, if he was not in the interview, I think it might have been. Okay. I'm gonna keep my eyes open for it. And I know sometimes people be dirty deleting that stuff. It's like, I hope they sent it to law enforcement before they did it, or at least keep it for themselves in case it needs to be revisited. You know, that's what I worry about with that. Town Chat says, Bubby, oh my gosh, I was just thinking that last night, and was even thinking if they allegedly did the name change first, in my opinion. Yeah, I know there's been a lot of speculation on that as well, especially when it comes to schools. And that's another thing that I was considering and thinking about, you know. SI officer says, CP not in the interview or the live. It wasn't an interview. They were discussing certain things about CP. And then there was a special room with collection, specifically Roman collection. Okay. What do you remember which creator it was? Oh, it's so hard. These are so hard because especially so many people have talked, you know, about it. Bubby says, but don't they have money here? I mean, is that such a large amount to do that to Sebastian, in my opinion? Just saying. Yeah, I mean, I think money is directly involved. And then there was a large transaction, according to At Night. I don't want to ever kind of forget that either. But then they also had enough money to give $15,000 to Steve Fischer to basically point everybody in the opposite direction of what makes sense, you know? Oh, maybe the lab, Kathy Bartholomew. That's a good guess too. Um, Bobby says, does parents have money or Sebastian worth more? So now they're going to collect that money. And I don't know. It's confusing in my opinion. Yeah, I see what you're saying too, Bobby. Like they could have collected money for him. I mean, most policies have stipulations, but I'm not sure about if a child goes missing. Like sometimes there'll be stipulations if someone takes their own life, or that sort of thing. Yeah. Okay, so I wasn't sure about that, Lori, but thanks. Because, yeah. Lori says it was the Gerber baby insurance plan. They're worth about 10 grand, right? Which is not a lot, but I mean, when you're 18, you could buy a car with that, or you could put it towards college or reinvest some of it. I mean, but 10,000 to, I don't know. Yeah, Lori. I mean, I'm thinking that's such a low amount, SI officer says, yeah, or they said he wasn't a problem child in their eyes. To them, he was annoying and he was a problem child allegedly. Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. Smiley said, was Sebastian a burden? And, Katie took too long to answer, in my opinion. I'm way too long, in my opinion, So, and it's just sad because the immediate answer should have been no. And I might even get a little bit angry and be like, well, why would you ask that? Like, why would you think that he would be a burden? But instead, Chris was like, is Sebastian a burden? Like he repeated her question. And that's usually when somebody wants to buy some time, to answer. Lady Freedom, I agree. I felt she had an attitude with him, the way she grabbed the menu and when she slid it to him, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. And then, later on, she was telling him something and then he was like kind of sinking down and biting his nails. And the body language was just not great, And in my opinion, he was so well behaved. Like he wasn't doing anything. And didn't deserve that, I think it was KP's natural self, Vic. I do. I think it speaks volumes about how dismissive she was, how really brash she was. She didn't look like a fun mom. She looked like a snobby, mean mom. And I don't know if that was her emulating her mother-in-law because she didn't have someone to emulate, a positive female role model, or if it was because if you can't beat them, join them, in my opinion, Yeah, exactly, Lori. I don't think it will either. I don't think they can collect on that. Now, I will say if they were to, because like in little Harmony Montgomery's case, her father was convicted and her mother went and had her declared through the courts that she passed, even though they haven't found Harmony yet. And then her mother was able to subsequently sue the state of New Hampshire for, they settled. So. Oh, thanks, Magic Star. See, yeah. And I just don't think that, I think it's smart thinking, Bubby. I just don't know. I just don't know if that's like, something to consider. Because they don't have him yet. They haven't found him. Yeah, they'd have to be declared. Thank you, SI officer. I just kind of can, compared to the other stories and things like that. But I appreciate you guys all being here tonight. I think I'm going to hop off just a little bit early tonight. I do have a lot of things in the works. And again, I want to get us members only this week and figure out how to get you guys some gifted memberships, as well, because you guys are great. And I really appreciate you all being here and, considering everything and bringing in some of your opinions and what you think might have happened. Again, our letter writing campaign is still on to the FBI. We're going to ramp things up a little bit too, in terms of maybe getting a hold of some of these people. But I also, good night, Star. Thank you. I also have placed on the community post on my community tab, and it just says posts, right? And then you click and you find them there. But I have added in the numbers from Crime Time Buzz, right? Those are some of the places that they're writing at that channel. And, I think that's great. And I know that we share a lot of subs and even probably some moderators and things like that, which is fantastic. The more the merrier, the more we can work together, the better. More heads, better than one, right? Better than two, better than three, and so on. But definitely consider writing to or calling some of those phone numbers. And I'm trying to think of what else. Please say prayers for Dog the Bounty Hunter, guys. His wife, Francie's son, is going through a tremendous amount of pain and sorrow in their life because his tragedy struck. It happened recently, July 19th, 2025, so just over this weekend. Dog's 13-year-old stepson had passed away from an accidental gunshot wound in his home. And that was in Naples, Florida, around 8 p.m. on Saturday. And it was accidental shooting by his dad, Dog's stepson. And just my heart goes out because this child, obviously was taken too soon. But let's say prayers for Dog. Let's say prayers for him. Thank you, Vic. Thank you, guys. And let's say prayers for Sebastian and Seth. And, let's stay Sebastian strong. I love you guys. And thank you so much for being here.